Pursuant to KRS 61.826 and OAG 20-05, the state of emergency regarding the threats to public health presented by the novel coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic and existing municipal order, this meeting of the Paris City Commission will be conducted by video conference. All city commission meetings may be attended by the public by viewing the video conference at the city's Facebook page online, Facebook Live. https://www.facebook.com/City of Paris KY. Mayor, it is after 6 a.m.
Okay, call the meeting to order, please. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Call your cell phones. Darren, would you have roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Gibson. Commissioner Galbraith. Present. Commissioner Roberts.
Present.
Commissioner Brooks has advised that he would not be in attendance tonight. And Mayor Plummer.
Here.
Mayor, we do have a quorum and ready to conduct business.
Okay, we need to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on March 9th, 2021. Have a chance to look them over?
Yes, sir. I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Galbraith and a second by Gibson for the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of March 9th, 2021. Questions or comments? Hearing none. Commissioner Galbraith?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Mayor Plummer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to number 5, public comment with discussion of the citywide sidewalks. Lauren, you want to come
I'm
up?
here for all the things tonight. I don't need to be a rat or a complainer in this, but,
Lauren, just for the record, so we have the accurate reflection, would you state your name and address, please?
oh, absolutely. Lauren Biddle, 1910 Yorktown Drive, Paris, Kentucky. Okay, so something that I have been noticing, I am an avid runner. I run every single day for about 30 minutes. Whether or not talking about construction, the sidewalk situation in the city of Paris is super dangerous. There are a lot of people who wear either like a fast food uniform or a Walmart uniform that walk from downtown and go to work every day. I pass more than one every single day. Whether it's in a construction zone, a lot of them have been walking up Cypress Street to go around the construction. But at this point, we're looking at the construction's on Cypress Street, the construction is also on High Street, and the construction is also on Main Street. So having a safe route for pedestrians to get to work, and we're talking about people who don't have the opportunity to buy a vehicle, that it makes it difficult for them to have the ability to get to work. I know we're having a hiccup right now, but I'm not just talking about the construction zone. I'm talking about Main Street, downtown Main Street. I myself, now take this lightly, I'm a bit of a klutz, but I have fallen 3 times, significantly 3 times. One of those 3 times was in a construction area. The other time was in front of Bourbon County Middle School, and the other time was downtown in front of the dentist's office, in front of downtown dentistry. However, the time in the construction area, had it been anyone else, I would say that there would have been significant issues with it. I did have to get an X-ray done. I did have to follow through with that. I was unable to put pressure on my knee for 3 days. I'm not a complainer by any means. But I just wanna make sure, what I am worried about as a citizen is that there is going to be an issue with somebody getting hurt significantly. Because I did not realize this before I started running, how often those sidewalks are used and how many people walk those sidewalks to go to work. So that's why I'm here. And from the chamber standpoint, I will also say, having looked into sidewalks, a lot of sidewalks in the historic downtown districts throughout Kentucky are manned by the cities. I don't know if that's the same for outside of the historic district, but a lot of our surrounding communities in the historic downtown districts, the city takes care of those sidewalks. And I will also add the bricks that were put in, what year were they put in?
Long time ago.
Are unstable. They're unstable. And so, those are at the point where, you know, the elderly could fall going into the Y. There's a lot of places down there that elderly are getting out of their vehicles, the dentist's office, the Bluegrass Hearing, those areas, it's just, my worries are that somebody's gonna fall and somebody's gonna get significantly hurt. So that's all I have to say about that. So.
Thank you.
Anybody,
Mark.
anybody have a question?
Thank you.
So where are we with that kind of sidewalk project that we were talking
Well,
about?
if you'll notice down in, it's already on the agenda for tonight under old business action items.
Yeah, we'll talk about
I
that.
thought we were gonna talk about it.
All right, we'll move on to old business action items. It is Safe Routes to School grant update, Ms. Lacy.
Okay, that was a decent segue, but that's not gonna cover all the sidewalks, just a segment of those areas. And I did a little write-up on the status of this project. It has some history at this point. So the state has a program called the Transportation Alternatives Program. It's called TAP. And since that program's been in existence, the city of Paris has been able to get areas of town, new sidewalks put in. The funds are for putting in new sidewalks, not replacing existing, okay, just to clarify. So the sidewalks along Bethlehem Road, those that were put in were done with TAP funds. So, back before Mike Aswan, the previous engineer, moved on, in 2015, an application was submitted for a TAP grant to cover sidewalks from Ridgeway along Main Street. So pretty much is from where the sidewalks end, at the county school campus, down to Clintonville Road, so it goes all along Urban Heights, and then it goes down Clintonville Road to Sunset. So, a couple years into the project, this was when I began here, we realized that Columbia Gas was going to be doing substantial work to Clintonville Road. And this caused us to have to reevaluate the location of the project. So instead of taking the sidewalks, far down Clintonville Road, which it originally went farther than Sunset. Do you remember what the?
Yes, it went all the way out to, cross street was Tahoma Drive.
To Tahoma. So it originally went to Tahoma. When we had to reroute the project, we ended up changing it to terminate at Sunset. But then there were additional funds that needed to be spent. So we looked at the abandoned railroad tracks that connect between Clintonville Road and Bethlehem Road. So if you look at an aerial map, it kind of looks like a diagonal connecting the Bourbon County Middle and High School campus and this Bourbon Central campus. So we did some research on that. We did a lot of research on that corridor. It is an abandoned corridor, and the residents that live along that corridor have essentially acquired those properties. So what that means is that for the sake of this project, those property owners are going to be approached to obtain right-of-way to convert that railroad corridor into a rail-to-trail, so to speak. So this would be Paris's first rail-to-trail. So 2019 came around, we got the contracts signed with the right-of-way consultants, ready to approach property owners to obtain right-of-way. COVID hit in 2020. It pretty much has been just, we've been contacting the state about updates, and at this point, the ball is in the state's court. So we are still waiting on the state to get us back the environmental review for the property, because if it exceeds 3 months, which it's been over a year at this point, if it exceeds 3 months since the environmental review has been conducted, they need to produce new documents. So we're waiting for the signatures from the Transportation Cabinet so that we can give the right-of-way consultants the thumbs up to go out there and to start approaching property owners to acquire the property. And at a minimum, we would be looking at 6 months that this could take. You know, at this point, the project's been, you know, we have other grants too that we've applied for through the state behind this that we're waiting on. So, I think that best case scenario, construction starts this fall. And I don't even wanna fathom what the worst case scenario is. Like, you know, we'd be looking at next construction season, 2022. So that's kind of, I think that covers everything I had notes on. Do you have any questions about it at this point? I'm sorry to sound so convoluted, but that's what it is.
It's been a mess.
So who maintains them if something happens? Is that city or is it the schools?
Property owner.
So, well, I think that, do you know, Mike, with the TAP project?
With the
there's-
TAP project, with the railroad to trail, that would be the city of Paris.
But in front of Bourbon Heights, it would actually, or in any private property, it would go responsibility back to the property owner.
I believe
That's
so.
the way most of our sidewalks in town, they go with the property owner, even on Main Street. It's the property owner that's responsible for the sidewalk and liable for it.
So I will say generally that this program has been, I mean, you see the sidewalks on Bethlehem Road. A great, vast improvement for all of those kids that are walking to school down in that corridor. This will be another great improvement. This program's been tremendous for local communities. We have not received an announcement for an application window since probably 2019. It was like the end of the previous administration, governor's administration, and so, you know, we're hopeful that the program will be revived, but at the same time, when it takes so long, you lose the knowledge of the project, and so in any case, generally, that's something that's a great tool for putting in new sidewalks, and there are other projects that it can go toward too, aside from just pedestrian improvements. But that's my update on that section. So we're keeping on top of it. We get in touch with this, you know, every other month. I'm sending something out to Kim Tompkins of the state. Now that we are so close, it's more frequent that, you know, we're reaching out to her. So, but the contracts are in place. We really just need to tell the right-of-way consultants to go out there and do it, because we can't go door to door and.
And they have all that information, oddly enough, where they had to acquire right away on the Bethlehem Road side. It's the same properties, basically, that have to do it on the back
For the
side for the
railroad,
railroad.
yeah.
Another stall tactic or problem that pushed it down the road, we negotiated for a long time with CSX, trying to buy the property. And when we went to close on buying the property, they told us at closing they didn't own it. So that's why we have to go to the right-of-way acquisition. So that was a game changer.
So, yeah, that's it for safe
So,
routes.
and there's no, what the state's doing to Main Street doesn't come across Clintonville Road.
No, it ends at Clintonville Road, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they will be doing some milling back
Be
from
doing some
bypass to
paving,
bypass,
yeah.
but not the major.
Not sidewalk
So-
work. They're doing sidewalks from 20th Street to 13th Street.
They're not gonna do anything with the ditch line that would impact.
No.
Because one of the, if I remember right, one of the issues that Mike Asselon was looking at was the drainage at Bourbon Pines. On the Main Street side, am I remembering that right?
It's-
You're nodding, somebody's.
It's,
yeah.
I have plans in my office. It's
Yeah.
designed, it's done, it's all.
Well, that's all done now.
Yeah.
Questions for Andrea?
And I'd be happy to provide regular updates on it as I am able.
That would be great.
Okay.
Next item, Mayor.
Business item, B, sidewalk repair replacement program.
This is, Mr. Gibson, what you were referencing a while ago, the update. Mr. Bowman and I have been working on finding some documents to model and you know, looked kind of strongly at the Midway program and some others, but you know, there's a sample application, program type application, but there will be some decisions to be made, you know, by the commission, as in the actual, how much money you want to set aside for it, you know, how you wanted to put a cap on, those type of things. Brian, you want, because I know you'd had some other discussion with maybe even Versailles, Mayor?
Midway, yeah,
Midway.
so in talking to the mayor there, I think the way it operates best for Paris, adopting that Midway model would be, you all would take bids, solicit bids, much like you do for the roadway. You know, we're gonna pave hypothetically 1,000 feet of sidewalks, and so your contractors would submit that. What it's gonna be to break up the old and repair the new, so you kind of have a finite cost that you're going to have. And then you would allow property owners to apply to be part of that. And so they know exactly how many feet of sidewalk they would be replacing. So they would then pay into the city 50% of that. If you go up the 50% route, you can cost share however much you want. They would then pay into that, then the city does the general contractor. And so you're probably, I'm assuming you would hire one contractor and you would give them the addresses that they're going to repair. You're doing it all, you're getting the whatever percentage from the local property owner. Then, you know, what this commission has traditionally done, not bound to do it, but we've kind of paved areas in different parts of the city with the road aid fund. You may want to do something like that or not, something like that. Maybe, you know, this year you're gonna focus on a certain block area to get all those sidewalks spruced up. Somebody across town might feel left out, but you're, yeah, we're gonna get to you next year, you know, and so that way you can concentrate on one area, because I don't know that you wanna do one house here and one house here, because that may affect the price that the contractors charge. But, you know, again, Midway's experience is a little different. They're not as big as Paris in terms of the kind of the core downtown area that has the aged sidewalk infrastructure. So just a couple things to think about. You know, on one hand, you would say, well, we wouldn't use it for a new development, because you wouldn't want a new landowner, a new subdivision coming in and using this process. But on the other, I think we have to look at how we draw that line, because you can have a vacant, dilapidated property that has no sidewalk, and it's a beautiful sidewalk on either end. Well, that would be a core piece of property that you'd want a sidewalk in. So, how to balance that out, I think is something very easy that you all could do once you received it in. And then, do you want to disqualify some folks who are in arrears or not? We have a kind of cross disqualification ordinance, which is good. So if someone comes in for a building permit, but they haven't paid their taxes in the city, or they don't have a business license, then they don't get their building permit. And that's so, on one hand, if you have a property owner who's in code enforcement issues and has liens with the city and not paying taxes, on one hand, you think, well, they shouldn't get the benefit of this. But on the other, that may be the very piece of property that you want to help become undilapidated. So I think a lot of that's just gonna be a balancing that you're gonna have to look at. See.
So there on page 6 of your packet, in those conversations, we kind of highlighted some of the things, again, modeling after Midway. This is their third iteration, I believe, of going through it. They started off initially, I believe it was only $500 as the max that you could up to, and I think they're up to $2,500 now. I think that they've seen that they've got more folks being able to participate in that way. It was up to 50% or a maximum of $2,500. Repair or removal or replacement of sidewalks that qualify. The qualifications, the guidelines, property owner where the repair replacement was to occur. They used about, as Mr. Bowman said, about the arrearage. The applicant would have to complete the application, formal application. City acts as a general contractor. Property owner must pay their share prior to work beginning. That was something that we saw, that you didn't go out and then you had no way to recapture those funds. And so property owner does not make the payment of their share. They'll then be billed for if you did get into that, they bill for the full expense.
Or you just skip them.
Skip it, right.
Tell the contractor not to do that to property.
And I think, if memory serves me correctly, in some of the conversations I had, and I can't remember which community, they said the full expense because they were afraid that somebody might come in with funds and then those funds didn't clear a bank or something like that. And so I think if you have it far enough in advance before the project started, you can address that. And then, like as Brian said, that you can reserve the right to designate certain areas of the community as target areas, and that would receive priority consideration by looking at it that way. Then if you had extra funds in your pool that you set aside available and you wanted to move on to another section, you would prioritize one section, but you still wouldn't discount another section from being considered based on the applications. That was one of the considerations. And so, the process then moving forward would be, as part of our next budget cycle, kind of determine what the total amount of funds that you'd like to make available. We set it aside much like we do slum and blight funds in a line item, and so up to that for that year, it's if you say 25,000 or whatever that's set aside, then once that money was allocated, that's the pool for that year, right? And then you could also determine if you wanted to set a minimum total cost threshold for participation. So if it was a sidewalk that cost $500, $250 and $250. I mean, you don't have to, but that was some of the considerations in the conversation. Is would you want to set a minimum threshold? Something of that nature. And then the application period. Once all the applications, then you would actually go to bid for the work to be completed, and then you would notify the participant of the start date of the project. Some other provisions in part of those conversations were about property owners that currently have a safety hazard and they don't participate. They're still required to repair or replace the sidewalk under the code of ordinances as it exists. So it doesn't, just because, this application is out there and I didn't participate, that didn't mean I forego my responsibility as a property owner to address that issue. And then, as Mr. Bowman said, talked about new construction of sidewalks in connection with new development. how you would want to approach that. And Valley Point, if you do have a section of town that, has a vacant property and you want to build development on that, and you do have properties on either side that might have sidewalk on it, how you would address that. So those are just things and considerations that we've come through as part of our conversations, and just looking for some, if you want to take this and digest it and shoot us back some considerations, and we can formalize something up for consideration at the next meeting, or however you want to proceed on that. This was the research that Mr. Bowman and I were able to put together, and the application itself, is pretty simple, based on, it doesn't have to be very, just the applicant's name, their address, some contact information, the estimated length of the sidewalk. So when you do turn that in to the contractor, have that information on that, and then also, certification section that was a sample on one of the other.
As far as commercial properties, like say someplace like that, are we just going to opt to enforce the code that's already existing? Say,
Yeah, I didn't, in my conversation, I didn't ask about commercial property, we just said property owners. So if it's, to my understanding, that's the decision for this body, but it could be commercial or residential as the property
Well,
owner.
I mean, from my standpoint, commercial should be upkeeping it.
So,
Some residential rental properties are held by LLCs. So,
I guess the big thing is, Main Street, High Cypress seem to be the places walking. So, to me, if this project, now which side of the street are sidewalks replaced from the Columbia issue?
It's the state transportation
Okay.
that's doing sidewalks on both sides from 20th Street to 13th Street, and then they switch over to High Street from 13th on to just 4th Street. Both sides sidewalks.
So we have a good portion done then.
Yes, ma'am.
The deadline on that is what, now, 20? I think.
So,
We are having a progress meeting on April 9th, and I'll have more information.
we'll have an update on that on the 13th meeting, but it is, that's, that Mike, as Mike said, our next progress meeting on that is on the 9th. So you want us to kind of give us some direction as to, as to, if you want to, I mean.
I'd like to send you an email or something.
Yeah, think about what we got there and
Something,
some,
because
right,
I've had a couple of thoughts here.
right. So if you do that, and then we'll formalize something for the next meeting for consideration. So, and again, this is just kind of the highlights to give you kind of, to think about, and if you want something else on the application, or you see something else, that you think, I actually had added, the one I had reviewed, didn't have an email address, but I did add that on there as another way of correspondence.
Because I don't know, you all, looking at it, this being an expense in next year's budget anyway. But we can have everything ready to go. I mean, they just wouldn't probably start working until July 1st.
Right.
By all means, this can all be done before that.
Yeah, we can get that. I mean, it would, for the budget, as we're working through the budget, we would need to know as to how much you'd like for us to set aside in that. But yeah, we can go ahead and get the application, once you approve an application process, we can start that and get all that information in, and then go out to solicit bids and do the RFP process on the work to have it ready to be scheduled, as start of the fiscal year.
Does the city have somebody that can go out and actually measure, so we know, okay, we need yards or whatever?
Well,
Say, if we're gonna target Cypress, then somebody needs to go out and actually.
Well, it would actually put that onus on the property owner to make the application. We wouldn't be, we could go out and measure, from that standpoint.
Budgetary, so we know, okay, we have the, there could be this many, feet of concrete, so that way we would know what to put in the budget.
Yeah, definitely, we could get some semblance of what that might be. Yeah, again, it depends on, how you would want to define an area. It wouldn't just be, I mean, I wouldn't think it'd just be one street. You'd have to, so, I mean, you could have a very large amount potential there that could, but we could.
So the way we pave, we break the city map into 4 quadrants, and we try to be equal in paving in each quadrant. We could do something similar in the 4 quadrants with sidewalks as we do with the street.
Or target a quadrant. Quadrant 4. If you don't, if you live in quadrant 4 and you don't participate this year, it might be 4 more years.
Several years. Some look at it, yeah.
And
There's no magic answer.
Right, yeah.
Whatever you all think will be the biggest.
Has some other community done this before?
Yeah, that's what Brian and I were talking about, that we.
Midway.
Midway, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
And Grayson, Mary Radcliffe just loved it, thought it did really, really, really well, and got a lot of participation.
And there's some other communities around the country that have done, you know, similar things as well with that. That's the closest one that.
I talked to him last week, he loved it, and he said, please pass along, if any of the mayor or the commissioners wants to talk, just give my number, and so I'll send that if you guys want.
Old business, item C, authorizing the mayor to execute documents for this 460 project. Mr. Bowman.
This is part of the waterline relocation program that addresses the 460 project. The HMB is kind of running point on this for the city. The bids were solicited and received. The independent excavating was recognized as the winning bid, and there's a bit of a process because of the state highway department that has to be followed here. So the next step is a notice of award. But before the actual contract can be done, they have to go get the bond work handled. And so what I would ask is that you all approve not only this notice of award, but as those other contract documents come in that the mayor has already authorized, sign those as well. That way we don't come back, you know, every week asking for permission to sign. So what I would ask is, if you all would approve, so I make a motion to approve the notice of award to Independent Excavating in the amount of $1,091,771. Sorry, and no cents, and to authorize the mayor to execute further documents, contract for the utility relocation on US 460.
So,
So
Mayor has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Galbraith, seconds. Just for qualification, could we have that, or his designee, if he was indisposed, that he could authorize somebody to sign that? Future? Or would we just leave it as the mayor? I mean, we've done it both
Gotta
ways.
redo the whole motion.
Yeah, okay. We'll just. I just was trying to think if there was an issue that came up that.
With pro temp.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if that would
Okay,
excuse.
so, is there a motion to amend the motion
Yeah.
by the mayor to let the mayor pro tem sign in the absence of the mayor? That's your motion. All right, second? Second by Mr. Galbraith. All right, we got to vote on the amendment first. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed to the amendment? No. Stephanie's going to kill me
No.
when she's watching right now, and I can see the message coming through on Facebook. Okay, now you can do roll call on the motion.
Okay, so the motion to execute the document, so, yeah. Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith?
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
Mayor Plummer? Motion passes, thank you.
on 6, D, Clintonville Road water line update. Mr. Withdraw?
Yes, we sent out an RFP. Well, it'll actually be published in the newspaper Thursday, and we will open the bids on this some 700 foot of water line replacement on April 9th, and bring back the information to this body for see what it comes in as. If you have forgotten, it's an area of Clintonville Road where a subdivision is gonna be going in. We found that the water line was not installed in the easement, and we are taking bids to move that water line and put it back in the easement at the proper depth that it should be. So that's due to hit the pay. You all approved the RFP it, and it'll be in the paper Thursday.
Any questions on that update? Thank you, Mike.
Moving on to old business, item E, COVID-19 utility relief. Dick?
Yes, and so we are still working with the ad district on the previous CARES Act funding that came in. Now there's been some new funding that is being made available, and on your packet on page 8, it's called the Healthy at Home. Actually, it's called eviction relief, but it also applies to not only rent but utilities. And what this application will allow for is renters and landlords can apply for assistance, and as it pertains to our utility customers, they would make a direct application to the state at teamky.hherf.ky.gov, and if they qualified, then the state would send a direct payment to the city. It would not go to the owner, so they would have to make those. So the assistance around, the maximum that utility relief is 100% of past due utilities since April the 1st of 2020, so almost a year ago, plus 3 months of future utilities, and that would be based on information that if somebody went in and made an application, they qualified, then the state would contact us and we would provide them that information, and then the funding would come directly to the city, and it still requires some work on the applicant. We can't make an application for somebody, they have to do it themselves. But and then the maximum past due is 12 months that they can do, but it also affords plus 3 months of future. Again, it is direct deposits on the rent side for those. It is direct deposits to the landlord. For the utility side, it's direct deposits to the utility. And this information is going out in next month's bills. We've already put that in, so that'll be an insert, so folks will have that. And we'll also put it up on our social media site, and we'll have information here, but just wanted to kind of update you that. It's another opportunity for, as it pertains to our citizens, to get assistance with either their rent or their utilities. And again, I'll use if a utility customer is on city water service, city water and sewers, but they have KU, they would make they would make an application into the state, but both entities would provide their information and get direct sum. So they're not just restricted to one utility or another.
Right. I have some other information on that. I received another email, and Kentucky Housing Corporation is actually going to be the administrator of this project. It's $220 million that's for rent and utilities. And one of the things that I say we're going to have to do is we're going to have to, in this process, we've got to send a W-9
Right.
and other to Kentucky Housing Corporation, and with all of our information, so they can direct deposit that stuff to
Yep.
us. So, and it says here that it may take as long as 60 days to get it. So the question I had when I saw 60 days to process this, I thought, okay, how does that affect, how are we going to know as a city, how are we going to know and not cut them off? That
Well, it doesn't prohibit you from
cutting them off.
cutting off, right.
Yes.
And it's a back, and so you start on it looking at their back, and so their current one, but then they could go 3 months current after they get, so you make an application today.
Right.
And it takes 30 days. You would pay your current month, but you would have the ability for 3 months in the future, so it wouldn't be the April payment, you'd be making that yourself, but you could qualify for May, June, and July. Does that make
The devil is in the details.
Right.
I just thought about, when I got this other email, I thought, okay. We're gonna see every, you know, as a city, we're going to see everything possible, and
Yeah, and the other side of this is not property owners. This is that.
You're in that property.
This is for your renter.
Renters.
Yes, rental,
That's right.
or it's not home ownership. That does not qualify under this program. The other programs that we're working on, they still do qualify for that.
And then I think, yeah, it says additional money is coming for homeowners and broadband payments at a later date. We'll keep you posted.
But it is another opportunity for our residents to get some assistance there.
Yes, okay.
So if they're getting assistance from, say, the well, they're still able to apply for funds also?
Yes.
Okay.
So as long as they don't, as long as they qualify, you know, based on the state program.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to new business. A, presentation by Chamber of Commerce, proposal on retail activity. Lauren, you're up again.
Back. Also chats this time. I'm really excited about this, and Holly and Darren and Andrea, at any given point, you all wanna add anything on what, the information you have, like, received, I would be happy to hear your all's points as well, because, you know, Paris is going in a good place right now, where Bourbon County as a whole, you know, from Parks and Recreation to the industrial park, we're just going in good places right now. And I think right now, this community has all the right players in the game, and we're ready to take off. So this is the Chamber's presentation to take off. So I attended, I would say back in November, a webinar just from this recruitment firm about how to retain small businesses in your community and make your Main Street a marketable Main Street to outside retailers and outside restaurants, and how to have that brand consistency. And from that, I emailed this group and developed a relationship with them. And at first I was like, hold on, this is, you know, a sales pitch. This is not the type of money the chamber has. And that's not what I was looking for. I was looking more for an informative thing. And as I gained more information from them, I realized that this is really a group that could influence our community in a positive manner. They have really, really worked to come up with a one-of-a-kind plan for what Paris could look like eventually, and they specialize in retail and restaurant and hospitality recruitment. And what they do is, or what they want to do for Paris, is provide 5 employees that they have that would specialize in downtown marketing and branding and beautification. And on top of that, if they would specialize in national retail recruitment that would backfill places like the old Boardman's building, places like the rest of that shopping center, the entire shopping center, places like that that have potential. They might not be updated, or they might be asking too much, or whatever the reason may be, but talking to those property owners, talking to current businesses, talking to brokers, and current downtown building owners and different things like that, that could impact the way we are being presented and the way we are we look to outside businesses. There's tons of money leaving this community every day in certain fields, and those fields are, from the very top to the top four are, building material and garden equipment. We have like $20 million leaving our community. Health and personal care, we have like $15 million leaving our community. Full service restaurants, which we all know that one, we have about $10 million leaving our community. And electronics and appliances are about $5 million leaving our community. So there's room for retaining, you know, that building might not be another Gordman's type building. It might be an electronics store, you know, it might be, so their job would be to find out what our community exactly needs. Andrea's already done a really great job at putting together a strategic plan, and they know that, they've seen it. He complimented you today and said how great the plan was, and they know that, they know what our community needs at this point. And they just want to follow through on the strategic plan at this point. And for me, this would be like having 5 people help out with the quality of life aspect we're trying to help out with, we're trying to implement. You know, Gordon has been in on these calls, and Gordon and I see eye to eye about this. You know, I'm sure Stan understands. The EDA is up to here with how much stuff they have going on. So this is just the chamber's part of, can we do something to help out with the quality of life effort? And yes, it's recruitment, yes, it's retainment of businesses, but it's also quality of life is what we're looking at. And that's the chamber's big push, is how can we help out with quality of life? How can we help out with hospitality and tourism, and making sure people come to our community and participate in our community. And I think that these people really would help out with that, and they would kind of give us 5 extra employees for, it's, if you look at it, it's a deal, but for a much better budget than hiring 1 extra person. I just feel like we have the opportunity for brand development, we have the opportunity for consistency, and I just think it's a really good opportunity for us as a community. And when we have those big businesses come in to look at us, we'll actually be able to say, this is all we have, and it's a real, and that's what we want to be able to do. So a lot of times Gordon will pull me in and on a call, and he'll be like, you know, talk about what all we have, and I'm like, sometimes I have to get creative, because if they're looking for something specific, it's you just have to get creative sometimes. But we're getting there, and we're doing a lot better, and we're a lot better than we were. I just think we just need that extra push. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
You talked about the 5 employees. How long would they?
It's a 3-year contract.
We have them for 3 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So our
How many
first,
hours a day, or how many hours a day, how many days a week?
okay, so that would be in a more serious phase of development into the contract.
No, I understand.
But however, year 1 is broken down as kickoff, community, boots on the ground, development, getting to know our community. But starting at day 60 to 365, that's when they start doing those recruitment strategies and developing and talking to outside people. And it might not be as much of the first year we're gonna get 5 new businesses. It's gonna be selling our community to the outside groups. For instance, I keep talking about a Chick-fil-A, just because as a mom, that would be great. But, you know, for like, we're not a town that Chick-fil-A is looking at. But if it were to happen, it would be this group that would make it, or a group like this that would make it happen.
Yeah, because to me, to to get, let's say, I'd love to have a Chick-fil-A too.
Me and you're on the same page.
But when, and these are the numbers that came out of the west side,
Mhm.
that this whole city of Paris, I think, has a median income of 42,000.
Yes.
And that's the problem, because you don't have the disposable income. And Chick-fil-A doesn't want you there once every 2 weeks, they want you there 2 or 3 nights, maybe 2 nights a week, and it's the disposable income that is to me, is this, I don't say,
And
not
you're
a
right.
not a fly in the ointment.
And they know that,
And
they know that.
And we've got to get more rooftops, and we've got to work on median income, and, you know, and again, it's all,
Yeah,
It's
they
all
know that,
jobs
so
and,
at
you know,
first, they're
it's-
gonna
it's
look at
everything.
the money that's leaving our community. And that's why I mentioned those areas, because those are necessities that are leaving our community that we could be, we could be keeping here instead. And I told him, I said, you know, health and fitness, you know, that's different, but we're not necessarily looking at the extra income of that personal care. We're looking at, an actual, I don't wanna like be competitive against our gyms, but, you know, we could afford to have another gym in our community, is what basically this says, this market, these. And I don't think that we're looking at it to be competitive against our local businesses. It's just, that's what our community needs.
Generally, like with restaurants, the more restaurants you have, the more you're going to get. You know, most restaurants don't wanna be out by themselves, they kind of in a cluster. So really, you know, I've never looked at it as competition. And of course, I have said this over and over, to them in that meeting too, we obviously need a grocery store more than anything. And we definitely know that money is going elsewhere, because anytime I'm in Lexington on that north side, Kroger, used to be people from Paris there. So that's one of the big things that
Believe it or not.
brought up, you know, to them, that we definitely need.
Believe it or not, this report says, and I agree with what you're saying, but this report says that we're $40 million over in grocery. And so,
Over?
is that not true?
Well, I think that takes in, part of the thing on that data, and I'll put my economic development hat back on, is sometimes when you need to drill down a little bit farther into
Uh-huh.
that, because if you just use the census, larger census broad categories that may say grocery, that may not be an accurate reflection, because some people, I think, that get tied into the census data on grocery is your dollar stores that have grocery items, Quick Picks, or your Ron Mills that
Yeah.
have grocery items. And so all of that goes into that. So when you think about grocery, what you're talking about, Commissioner Gibson, and is that, you know, something if the community would be fortunate enough to entice a Kroger to come back in, that's different than going to Circle K and picking up a grocery item in Circle K. So that's why it's gotta be a little bit careful in looking at that data from that standpoint, but.
Yeah, that may need to be
yeah.
broken down a little bit, because, a lot of what they used was, like, what counties touch our Walmart, basically, consistently, and we're looking at 3 other counties that consistently just come to our Walmart, on top of Bourbon County. So, our Walmart gets hit pretty heavily, not just by Bourbon County, so. But yeah, this is not a project that, you know, the chamber has the capacity to take on. I think that we're all really looking at growth and development and strategic growth for what Paris wants right now. I think that we realize that we have a lot of preservation, type-minded people, but the chamber, sees preservation, but we also see, the need to fill, buildings with dollars that can be taxed and things like that. And so that quality of life aspect really comes into play here of what can we do in our community? Can I go eat, and can I go shop, and can I take my kids out in my community and spend the day? And yeah, that's true. I can do that. I can go on Saturday to the farmer's market, or I can go on Saturday to downtown and have some breakfast, or, you know, I can do a couple things. But outside of that, what do we have to do? And I think just completing our story, I think that would do a whole lot for us. And I know that this would help out with job creation. This would help out with, and they have tons of stories in this packet if you all want to look at any of it. This would help out with job creation. This would help out with local business development. I talked to the guy that would be our contact. You know, this group is out of Birmingham, but our contact is from Lexington, Kentucky. He knows a lot of people from Paris, so he has a direct connection to Paris, and I think that his heart for this area really would help us out as well. So, they represent also Paducah, Bowling Green, Madisonville, and Florence, and some other places as well.
The bot, sorry.
No, don't.
Age before beauty.
Oh.
I'm gonna amend that deal. Thank you, and you go right ahead, go ahead.
So the 5 individuals that you would get, are they local, are they coming from?
They would fly into here. However, it would be a consistent communication with them. What it says in my information, it would be consistent communication with them daily, if not every other day, of what they've done, who they've been talking to. So we would have regular updates from them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are you asking the city to partner with, is this a partnership? Is this a
With the chamber?
partnership with, I don't say, chamber and other entities
County.
coming together?
Whoever wants to give me money, Stan.
Well, okay, first of all, how much is this program? Anything for a free?
You have asked such a good question, Stan.
It's always about the pay.
It's always
Let's
about
say it's
money.
not about the
Stan
money,
always
it's about the
wants to know
money.
about the money.
It always is.
Okay, so year one, we're looking at recruitment and downtown implementation support. If we enter in that 3-year contract, that's $65,000 for year one. If we
He set up real quick.
Now, if we enter into it just for 1 year, it's $75,000, so we're getting a deal. And let me
Here is 75,000, but if we do 3 years, we get it
It's
for
65,
65,000.
yes.
Oh, per year, come year
It's
two.
a deal. Now, we're gonna be entering a phase of negotiations with this team. This can be negotiated, I will say that.
Okay,
And that's been made very clear to me.
Okay, well, that raises the other side of what I'm thinking about. As a city, if we were to partner on that, it seems to me like we just talked about in this, with HMB, we would have to do it looks like to me, we'd have to do an RFP. Now,
I would be happy to do that for you.
this company that, that, to me, we would have to do an RFP, so it may not be this company, it could be SYZ Corporation or somebody else.
Now, this company will tell you, they are not the cheapest company. But for what you are getting and the quality and the communication that you get from them and and I've called around to other towns in our state, and they said the reason that they're the best, because so many retail recruiting firms are the same. And the reason that they are the best, me talking to other cities, Paducah and Bowling Green was who I talked directly to. The reason they're the best is because of the communication that you get from them and the amount of data you get from them and the training that you get from them. So in the end, Warren Biddle will come out of this knowing how to do this.
All right, let's get back to the numbers.
Let's get back to the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have a 3-year contract,
For year one, $65,000.
65. Year 2,
Year two, $45,000.
that's why
And
they
that's
give you 10
recruitment.
off the first year.
That's recruitment,
All right. And year 3,
$45,000.
45.
For a grand total of $155,000.
Yeah, 155, right. I'm trying to digest this.
But you split it in half possibly. I mean, if you think about it, it could be split in half.
Would they do it based on what they recruit? If they recruit 10 businesses?
Percentage of?
So I've talked to them about that, and we're gonna have to wheel and deal that, because the county said the same thing to me. They're like, can we do it based on performance?
Like a headhunter.
Like a headhunt.
Yeah, and I've talked to them about that, and it
Right.
wasn't a no, but it definitely wasn't a yes. But I think it could be negotiated. It wasn't a no. I don't think that's their ideal way of doing it.
But just, you mentioned Bowling Green, Paducah, Florence, just based on location, those really aren't competitors.
No.
Right. Are they agreeing to not compete? So for example, if Cynthiana hired them and Paris
That's a
hired
good
them,
idea.
they're in quite a conflict. Because
Non-compete.
the same entity may not be wanting to have two stores, they might want one. So.
That's a really good idea. I will make sure to relay that information onto them. That's a really good idea.
Betty Ann just told me today that we are not competitors with Cynthia.
Sure. I think that we complement each other, and that I am happy to send people their way, and they're happy to send people our way, and, you know, a lot of their people come here to do things. Just this past week, we had the flower truck, and so I just think that, but as far as what it looks like, everybody compares us to Cynthia. I mean,
They have the rulers.
Yes.
they do have rulers.
So there's different ways to do that. You could do it geographically, you could do it by size. Like if they're helping Lexington find somebody, maybe.
Yeah,
Different ways to do that. Let me know
yeah,
if
I think
can
that's a
help you.
really good idea, especially for, geographically even.
Well, and even to that point, Brian, you're looking at Lexington, you could be in competition with Lexington, because if a national chain is going to locate in the north side of Lexington, they might be in an area based on that National Geographical, what they say, they won't have another store within so many miles of that store there too, so you could be in competition.
You can restrict by subject matter, you can restrict by location, you can restrict by difficult. So,
And Mills are like very fascinated by Andrea. Are the guy that is our contact. Not like in that way, but Andrea is just a wealth of information, and so he literally is like, Andrea told me about this plan, and I'm like, so he's an economic guy, and so he really is like, when Andrea starts like talking about what we've done here.
Spoke his language, I guess.
She did.
Have
And-
they, could I interject, have they offered to come here
They have
and
come.
give a formal, they have come here to give a formal
No,
presentation?
they haven't given a formal presentation yet. They've come here to scope us out, though. I've met with them in person. They really loved our downtown. They saw the potential that, I see. And, they have come here. But I think that them, getting closer to like what you guys feel about it, what the fiscal court feels about it, they are more than happy to come here and give a formal presentation.
I think if you wanted to move that direction, and Mr. Bowman and I were thinking along the same lines, is that it would be appropriate to have a joint meeting with the county and the board of directors for the chamber.
Or any other players,
I mean,
maybe this
Buster
could
C.
be,
Hill, I mean, whoever it might
yeah,
be.
this thing could, and
That's the end, didn't have to come up.
but I mean, this, you could have one, and use one of the Bourbon County or Paris,
Right.
use their auditoriums and things, and you could have everybody in there and hear the same word, because everybody has to hear the same message. Because you and I, none of us in this room can relay that message.
And as
I think
to what
that's a
you
great
pointed out,
idea.
Yeah, just have one meeting, invite everyone.
And then they could even do a Q&A at the end.
Do it
Stream
online.
live.
Yeah.
Stream it.
Stream it live, yeah.
Mhm.
But have them come here?
Yes.
Talk
Yeah.
in
Yes.
Right, have them come here
Face
and
to
talk.
face.
they get on planes all the time. And for them to come, they definitely would come in.
They pay their expenses out of this, it's not a cost plus or anything. They pay, they
Their
come up
people?
here, they're paying their people out of this fee.
Yes,
Okay. all right.
yes. Now, there is a little thing at the bottom of
Good thing
Oh.
I understand.
There's always.
this, that if we want extras, that will be like added into the contract.
Okay.
And what those extras consist of, we would need to negotiate with them. If there are extras, and I don't think, they're really easy to work with. I mean,
Commissioner, as you pointed out a while ago, there are other players in this space that, and actually when we were on there, I asked what differentiated them from the other players in the space, and their response was they felt they provided a more, I don't know, I forgot how Mel said that, but a more concierge type, focus to you and not just your community's not just a number to them. They, when Lauren talks about the 5, they limit those 5 people to only have 5 customers themselves. So they're not, those 5 people aren't flying all over the country with 100 other customers.
Right.
There, I think was the number, he said 5 other communities that each, I think is what he said.
I even have
is that
Or
what-
it didn't say you
Yeah.
looked at a number.
Right, yeah.
I even have data showing who our 5 people are. Like, I mean, I have.
But those 5 people, while they work with other communities, they don't have a portfolio of hundreds of other
Yeah.
communities they're working with. They're more focused on that. Yeah, yeah. So,
But to me, it's got some merit, I just need the dollars.
It's expensive.
I mean, it sounds like, from this body, I don't know what the county or the others, but I think the chamber board could definitely organize a meeting for all those parties to participate and learn more about.
Absolutely. And, I've had my board members on various calls, throughout this process, just so like, I can let them know, hey, this is something we're interested in looking at. They're actually I'm gonna talk about this with them on Thursday. And if that's something you all wanna move forward with, I'm happy to do that. And, Neil was like, just call me first thing in the morning and let me know what needs to happen. And I'm pretty sure that they would be more than happy to come up here and do that formal presentation. Any other questions? Well, I'm very excited I just think this is a really good opportunity for us, especially from a national retail standpoint. So I'm excited about what the future of Bourbon County holds, so.
One thing that he did mention, to your comment about Chick-fil-A, he said with COVID, a lot of these companies now, like Starbucks, are just doing drive-through only type deals.
Right.
So who knows what's gonna happen the next 2 years,
Right.
Even a Chick-fil-A might say, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're designing their new restaurants and
yes,
things like that.
small,
Yeah.
so they don't have.
They have definitely corrected the drive-through.
Yes, they have.
They have.
Yes, they have.
So you never know.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thanks, Lauren.
And do you all want me to get other quotes from other companies?
But,
Do you want me to
think-
go ahead?
You'd have to
We
do
hear
a
from them
formal,
first.
Yeah.
RFP.
I
Let's
would
go.
like to hear from them first and then.
Okay,
Yeah, let's get some of the devils in the details.
can do.
Thank
you all.
Thank you, thanks, Lauren.
All right, let's move on down to downtown beautification and maintenance, Commissioner Gibson.
And this sort of goes hand in hand with that, because again, if we're going to make ourselves marketable to our own citizens as well as tourists, this is one thing that I feel that we're lacking in. So what I'm talking about is the city taking over the downtown beautification as a business owner downtown for almost last 30 years, you know, this was always an issue that would come up when it was the Main Street program, when it was kind of shuffled off to tourism, shuffled off to chamber. And so we've kind of done a deep dive in this, and Betty Ann compiled a big report here. And Stephanie did the same thing. She just sent out a poll to all of the people in her.
Municipal clerk?
Yes, municipal clerks. And so from her poll, 21 of the people that were polled said yes, that the downtown beautification is done by the city as well as being maintained by the city. Only 2 said that they were not. So that's quite a bit. Betty Ann kind of went and did even further. Frankfurt City Parks Department, it was some county funding. The Nicholasville city gives $30,000 in additional funds to do for paid staff, watering, fertilizer, paying for the flowers. Berea does a budget line of $6,000 a year for beautification. They also, you know, and this includes Christmas decorations, things like that as well, flags. Flags used to be bought by the city because I sold the flags to the city when I had my gift shop. So I know the city used to do the flags for each season. We did leaf fall, the American flags they had to buy every year, and Christmas flags. So I don't know when that kind of got pushed into the tourism budget, but it was never in tourism the 10 years that I was on the tourism board. Danville, city pays for maintained flowers baskets on Main Street. Woodford County, city pays for flowers, but they spend about $12,000 a year, and they also do the flags. Hanging baskets downtown in Lawrenceburg are maintained and paid for by the city. Same thing with seasonal banners. Winchester, city and county allocate funds for to use each year. So that just shows that basically everybody around us, that is a city issue, and they do water. And when I was involved in the Main Street program, when we would raise money for planters and things and flowers, the hardest thing was to get the city to water them. And we kind of thought, you know, if we're paying for them, surely to goodness the city can water them. That never happened. Those planters ended up behind the building after about 2 or 3 years, and then they ended up at the garden club, and then they ended up being thrown away. So, you know, this is something that I feel the city needs to go ahead and undertake, so that way it is done the same way every year, and it's maintained, because, you know, I spoke to the maintenance director at Wilmore today, because I've even talked to Deborah about this to kind of see what happened while she was here as chamber and tourism. And she said, you need to go to Wilmore, their baskets are fabulous. So I spoke to their maintenance director today. I'm like, so what did you do to make them, you know, look so good? And he said, we have people from out of town all the time coming just to take pictures of their, you know, family and all with our baskets. They said that they get so big that sometimes they drape 6 feet down. And I said, so what do you do? And he said, well, the main thing that they do is they water early. They water between 4 and 5 in the morning every single day. They have one person that does that 7 days a week from Mother's Day to basically the end of October. And they also fertilize every other day. And he's going to text me the name of the fertilizer. So anyway, you know, if we want to be a beautiful city, if we want to get people to come down and to put businesses, you know, downtown that looks very nice, you know, our big things that we've got to maintain these sidewalks, we need to do a beautification program that we're consistently doing every year. And the other part of this is, you know, kind of back to what Lauren was saying about the brick pavers that are popping up. Now, from what you said, or maybe it was Mike, I don't know who has said this, but evidently the sand was put there so the city can actually access those utility lines. easily without having to jackhammer. So if that's the case, then evidently periodically we need to go back and resurface those bricks in sand so that they're not popping up, so we don't have someone that falls when they're running, walking, whatever. So anyway, what I have passed out to you, Mike Smith was very nice to go on the hunt for the baskets that used to be hanging downtown. Deborah said that the hooks that the brackets that they were hung off of evidently completely rusted out, so those were thrown away. Mike did find 10 baskets. Evidently they originally had 16. I would suggest let's do an even 20. That way we could maybe get as far as putting a few, like maybe by the Y, and kind of go in that whole section from there to the courthouse. So what I have given you all is, and this is just one company, but so the brackets, and these are all made for commercial, they're steel baskets with the cocoa liners, and these actually you can add for $50 one of those self-watering reservoirs. So you put the water in them and have a PVC pipe that comes up, so that way, you know, if the city doesn't have time to water every single day, maybe every third day, then that way, you know, they're continuously being watered. So this is a quote for 20 brackets. And again, this is just the one company that I found. I'm sure there are others out there. And then the steel baskets with the cocoa liners, that reservoir. So you're looking at about 13,000, a little bit over 13,000 to do that. Obviously, those probably would not have to be replaced more than maybe every, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 years. I don't know exactly how long they'll last. And then from what Smith's did in the past, I also got a quote from her. In the past, they did 16 baskets, and this was them doing the dirt, the flowers, and, you know, putting everything together. All the city has to do is pick them up. And that was $1,500, so if you add that additional 4, it would be $1,875. So you're kind of looking at a grand total of about $8,000 on this first go round, and then about $2,000 every year after for those flowers. That is what I am suggesting that we start doing to make town look a little bit nicer. Any questions? Stan?
Help me understand, again,
Okay.
being the, I guess, the senior person in the room. I need a little help here. On the second page,
Uh-huh.
it says 20 lamp post brackets, but then we got 60. Why is there 60? Help me.
Oh, well, you know what, then that's yeah, that's a mistake right there.
Okay, all right, good, okay.
Yeah, it should be it should be 20, I must have
Okay.
added those a couple of
Okay, that's
times,
fine.
must
Okay,
not.
good.
So actually, you're looking at less than that then.
Okay, that's fine.
So if you wanna say 160 times 20, and that includes those reservoirs. Sam, I can't believe you don't have your calculator out.
Oh, well,
32.
Angie made,
3,200.
yeah, Angie made fun of me the other day.
So
And then you got
3,200, so see, it's
1,800,
even
so
less
now
than
you're
what I
down to
thought.
5,000, and
Yeah.
plus, still you're about
Plus-
$8,000.
Yeah.
The brackets were taken down in a lot of cases because they decided, I believe it was either tourism or Main Street wanted banners up,
Uh-huh.
and the brackets wouldn't work with the banners and the flag.
Well, it looks
And-
like
And then
with.
there's some signs down there too that are interfere with the banners.
Yes, and also places like Bourbon Boot that have overhangs, so they have to be strategically placed. I know they can't be on the ends, but if you look at this bracket, and I know you can't really see it up close here, it's got like the metal that goes all the way around, so it should not interfere with the banner thing, because this would go either under or above that.
I just know that was a video in one of the banners and the flags and a lot of the brackets were
We had
taken down.
banners, we also had banners downtown when we had the hanging baskets, because when those were first put up, downtown merchants were asked if they would purchase
Sponsor-
one.
Sponsor one, and that's
Yes,
why
and
we
I
went
had
down
a
to 10.
flag and a hanging basket in front of my store on the same pole. So evidently, it was done at some point. Any discussion?
Well, the banners and the flags, the city pay for that? I just wanna make sure whatever.
The city doesn't at this point. I don't know when they stopped. Mike, I don't know if you were here then, but like I said, I would bill the city.
We funded the Main Street program, and a lot of time the Main Street program got funds and raised their own money, and the city would just give the money to the Main Street program to handle it.
Well,
Now, we helped out in kind with services like putting the flags up, taking them down, and storing them here. And that, but for the longest time, we had a Main Street program. That's, even how the sidewalks, that program got started by grant money and then raising funds. The city was involved in it, yes, but it was the Main Street Renaissance program that actually took that ball and got those sidewalks put in. When the Main Street program, nationally quit being funded, I think here locally, they merged together in with the Chamber and Tourism, but we still funded, the programs, but different people took over the program.
I will say though, the city, I billed them directly for those flags for years. So, said City of Paris on the check. So at that point, the flags were bought from the city.
Well, we tried to maintain them as best we could, but, we still continue to fund tourism and the money that used to go to Main Street, I'm assuming goes, the split between tourism and
It
the Chamber.
actually doesn't. Betty Ann also gave me that. She used to be funded about 20, let's see if I can find it. She's now down maybe $4,000 or $5,000 from what she used to get funded out here. So.
Well, she also collects a bed tax goes to tourism that's countywide.
Still, that does not mean that the city does not need to take up this project.
I'm not saying that, and I will take exception. I, for a number of years, came in early in the morning and watered those flowers. For you to say they didn't get watered, I'll take exception at that, because I did it.
Well, they didn't always, because again, we went from having flowers in the pots to the next year buying, those green velvet boxwoods. And we did have those for about 2 years until they died, so they were not unfortunately getting, consistently.
Well, I'm sorry, but I did it for a long time. Mr. Mayor, you remember, as city manager, what we did, we
Well, I'm talking
even
before-
met with
before
Biowater Farms where we
Johnny's
bought
time.
them from. Remember, we bought the flowers from Biowater Farms, and we had to meet with the guy because he didn't have any medium in the baskets, and the water was running right through it.
Well, the plots I'm talking about were before Mayor Plummer was here.
Well, that's.
So, that's been a long time.
That's a long time.
Again, I've been downtown 30 years, so.
I've only been here 38, so.
So it sounds like you're making a motion to spend
Yes.
up to, what's the math? 10,000?
Well, it's the baskets plus the brackets add up to be $4,990 without tax,
Right.
without shipping,
But before the actual flowers, yeah.
without flowers.
About a little over
Without-
1,800 for
without-
flowers, yeah.
I thought flowers were $1,500.
That was for the 16. If we go up to do an even 20 baskets, then it would be 18.
Now you're up to 7.
That's what I was saying, up to 10.
Up to 10, that's what I would say. And then from hereafter, for the next 5 years, however many that they stay, then we'll just be out the expense of the flowers. And now Betty Ann also said that there was a gator that the city put a water container on the back of.
We did, yeah.
And she said that, there was a time she and her husband would come every day after work and water flowers too. So, obviously there's a tank somewhere. And I remember Deborah tank being on the back of a truck and coming down, and they kinda had a wand that they used.
Yes.
So, yes, I would like to make a motion that we could spend up to $10,000 to get baskets before season. which would be around Mother's Day is normally when people do this. And then, you know, again, we've gotta do the consistent watering to keep them looking good.
Well, the original baskets, did the city buy those?
There
Was
are-
that already in the budget?
there are 10.
Allocation we gave Main Street and.
They're 10, and if they're usable, then we
Yeah, they're-
might be able to use less. But we still would need to get that reservoir so that they're self-watering as much as possible. That's why we would say up to 10,000, because it could be
Because
different.
What they did here in some, again, on the reservoir, they say, we don't want 60. We want
Well, but that's that whole, that 159.90, 159.55 is the basket, the liner, and that reservoir all together. So it's actually 3,200.
I don't know, before I vote on it, I'd like to have some kind of summary of everything you said tonight. On paper. It's a lot of money. I do want the city to look good. I just want to make sure.
just everything. Yes, yeah, the 2991 times 20.
Commissioner Gibson, look at the,
Well, when you put it in the cart though,
Yeah.
it gives you that total at the end.
$50.
so, cause it's saying reservoir 60 by 22 is 2991 at the
Right.
bottom.
That's with 60 of them.
Okay.
So you can go, yeah, so that's 60
So we're going
times
at
22.
20.
It's
Yeah.
$9.85.
Yeah.
Right.
For the reservoir.
Yeah.
So then you times 20,
20.
$1,000.
20,000?
About one.
Okay.
One.
No.
You're still under, you're still under that
It's
10,000.
the
Yeah, we're still
executive
under
order.
10.
After
If
you
we
do
got,
it,
but I'm thinking,
And
I'm
then
like
what
the mayor,
happened after
if
that?
we got assets out there,
You did?
can we use those, can we use those and then we don't have to buy 20 at $159.
Right.
So we're buying.
Say it's $1,600, and that was $1,600 more than paid for the residents. If we got, you know.
Yeah, if
let's
they're
see what-
usable.
Let's see what our assets are.
That's what I'd like to see
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, let's see our assets.
Well, Mike's got them, like I said, he found them, he said they look like they're in decent shape, so we might have 10 that would work.
All right, let's,
Still, I'd still like to have all that, just talk tonight on a piece of paper, so I can.
So it's basically here, except for the fact that I put 60 in there. So do you want this
What's been
one?
done in the past, so, you know, what, pay for what? Pay,
Oh, in the past, I don't think that it was paid for those.
Trying to think, we put 5,000 in the tourism.
There was, I don't know, that was all changing prior, right before
Yeah.
I started. I do remember having, when tourism and chamber was together, that we upped the allocation to them based on them taking on responsibility of Main Street type programs. And there was that was when tourism and chamber was together. That was actually, there was an up, based on, taking on those Main Street type functions, because,
Well,
Deborah
again,
Deborah
that's not
took.
what the cities that are around us do.
Right, I'm not saying that's not, I'm just saying that's from history perspective, that to answer Mr. Overlander's question, there was money that was allocated.
And I will have to say, I was on the tourism board for 10 years, and what we did at that time, our only line items were advertisements, you know, in different travel magazines and things to get people here, and, also, obviously salary. So, you know, tourism had a pretty small budget, and it was all aimed, you know, pretty as fiscally responsible as possible towards advertisements and things like that. So I don't know when, you know, tourism had to take on flowers, but that's, you know.
Can I ask a question really quick? I'm not trying to start anything, I'm just trying to ask a question. Since the budget was
cut 25% prior to my tenure and Betty Ann taking over the office. Each budget was cut. Was that because the expectations of the Main Street program, the responsibilities that each office took over from the Main Street program were taken away? Like, are we not expected to take care of Main Street now?
Well, that's what.
That's my question.
Yeah, it seems like Commissioner Gibson is advocating for the city to take that responsibility over.
Yes.
And so if
And
that's the case, then this board needs to think
And
about that.
so, yeah, that's just the question I have, like, are we, because the money was cut 3 years ago, or whatever, 4 years ago.
Outside agencies based on finances were cut 25%.
Yeah.
It wasn't based on
I didn't know if it
single
was
out any.
directed to Main Street or
No,
not, because
no,
of the Main
everybody.
Street
Everybody was,
responsibility.
yeah,
Okay,
that was
gotcha.
a 25% across that.
That was the only question.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to stir anything, I just had a
No,
question.
you're fine.
But that is, I mean, that depends on this, that is the vote of this board, or decision this board to make, is if that is something, an allocation or a function that you want to bring back internally, then that is a budgetary item that we will have to plan for in subsequent budgets, plus the increase in manpower and stuff like that too. And we do have a gentleman that we focuses on downtown, that Dave Owen does a great job cleaning up and could take on some of these, but there would also be some additional costs associated with, I guess it would be in the Public Works Department that you would have to consider as well, beyond just the purchasing, because you do have time and manpower and the increases in that, so. But that's a decision this body would have to make and give us direction as future budget, you know, if that's something.
Got a motion on the floor. It needs a second. Or for lack of a second.
So the motion is on the floor for us to go ahead with it, or motion on the floor for us to look at it, because Mayor Plummer asked for more information.
Her motion was to spend $10,000 before Mother's Day. Up to, excuse me, to get the baskets and the flowers up on the pole.
I don't know if Mother's Day was part of the motion, but.
But
So,
Okay, I'm gonna, Mother's Day's in May, correct?
Right,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
it's May.
Okay. All right.
So it would be
What?
this budget, not the July 1st budget, right?
That's right. So we would have to spend money this, before the new budget year. But I guess we have a motion, but I don't know that we have a second, correct?
I haven't heard.
Okay. There's not a second, but I guess my point, what I'm going to say is that I want to understand up to 10,000, that, I know how it goes. You got 10,000, you're gonna spend 10,000, so I want to know what my assets are. I want to know, is it $5,987? Because that's how I come up with $6,000. Now, we don't have anything, but if we've got baskets and things out there to utilize, can we utilize those? So we don't have to spend $5,987.
I would, definitely. And the biggest,
So we have 10 baskets that we can use.
yes,
Good. Mr.
We have 10 baskets, that they may need some additional hanging hardware and stuff like that added to them. I don't believe that all the pieces are there, but the main portions of the basket, I believe, are intact.
But not only
Okay.
that, so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, so not only that, of the under 10,000, we're also looking at, you said manpower. Of bringing someone in, is that earlier in the morning than their regular shift to water the plants and things? Okay.
If you went with that, I mean, you know, you wouldn't have to, but there is,
Mhm.
that would be a consideration, and you wouldn't have somebody on staff 7 days a week either that could do that.
Correct.
well, and therefore the reservoirs, so they wouldn't have to be. 7 days a
That's
week.
right.
Because you can get these a whole lot cheaper without getting those reservoirs.
Thousand, by my calculations, $1,000, like short of $1,000 to get the reservoirs. That's the, if you got 20 at $50 roughly, 49.90, 85 or whatever it is. Before I would vote, I would like to know all in what we're out before I vote. I wanna know what we're in for. Is it, is that 10,000, will that be enough to cover it this year? Do we have to not say 10,000, is it 8,000? I mean, money is money.
We can do that.
Oh, so, and maybe that would be, we could gather the forces and figure this thing out by our first meeting in April, and we would still have time to Mother's Day in May. Okay.
That's May 9th.
And yeah, I'll be happy to check with Mr. Smith and see if I can go get one of the baskets, so that way I can measure. And again, I just based this on a 22-inch basket. Who knows, those could be a 16-inch basket, and if that's the case, the price goes down.
Okay.
All right, so do you all want me to withdraw the motion and wait and put this on the next agenda? When we have a little more.
I would
information?
prefer that you do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I will withdraw the motion and I will get with Mike and we will look at those baskets, make sure they're in good shape. And if they are, then I will get
Thank you.
exact pricing and I'll even ask about shipping.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I have a note, so we're looking at 10,000, under 10, or whatever the price is
For this year
for this year for May.
Yes.
And then other years also.
It would just be the flowers
Correct. Okay.
and the maintenance.
We all set?
All set.
let's move on.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Item C, approval of a contract with Perfection Group. Mr. Bowman.
So we put this on hold pending, really your all's direction last time about what to do with financing, not only of this project, but perhaps others. You all gave pretty clear direction. And just as an update, I think the RFP was gonna either drop today or tomorrow to the financial institution, so he was gonna set that for 2 weeks, so I would think that would be on your all's
April 13th.
thing.
I think it'd be ready for the April 13th agenda.
Okay.
So this agreement began as the Perfections Group standard agreement. I had suggested a first round of changes, been back and forth. They've been easy to work with, so no complaints by that. Happy to go through this with you. I think you all know the proposal, and that's really more in the attachments that go to this agreement. But the contract is fairly simple enough. The price is just under $2.3 million, so it's $2,296,419. Even I have inserted some of our typical scope of work terms that the city has requested of contractors in the past, particularly those who would be out in public areas and public spaces. In Article 4, which is the timing of the payments, as you know, this is going to have a pretty substantial initial payment, which in part will cover ordering a lot of the water meters. That's a 20% fee, so just under $460,000. They've agreed to delay that to at least May the 3rd. That's just kind of a date I picked on the calendar, counting weeks, which I thought would give you all enough time to have the financing in place. As you see, it says the date may be extended as necessary. I've talked to them, in fact, talked to Carter this afternoon. They understand that may get delayed a week or 2 weeks, whatever it may be, get the note in place. So they'll begin work pretty much immediately on their end of things from a planning perspective. They're not going to order the water meters as we wouldn't expect them to until we had given them the money to do so. Article 6 is termination, and they've added a few things, we've gone back and forth. There's one small little point I want to clarify with their attorney, and that's just, you know, in case, termination clauses are triggered, you know, how the city is gonna remain protected from its investment. I don't think that's gonna be any problem. I think it's a fairly short phone call with their attorney, and then you'll see the rest of the changes that I've made to this. Really, quite standard. Some of their sections in here really had no bearing, and it came from their form, and so they agreed to take that out. Of course, they're insured in here, as we ask of everyone, of at least $1 million in coverage. They agree to comply with all of our laws that are in existence, as we would expect. So, you know, this company has worked with many Kentucky municipalities and other local governments, so this agreement in large form follows that with other companies. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I would ask that you approve the mayor to sign this after I clarify a couple other minor points with the company on some of the language to be worked out to the satisfaction of the attorney.
Second.
Commissioner Gibson has made the motion, a second by Commissioner Roberts, to authorize the mayor to execute the contract upon clarification by the city attorney on a few minor points.
Comments?
I have one question as far as further comments. It's on page, I guess it's under section 6. There at the end, it says, it's highlighted in red, and it's commented, I guess, BB2. We need to discuss this. It is one-sided and makes no allocation for any return of the city's investment.
So the original was in pink,
Yes.
and I didn't like that because it was one-sided.
Okay.
So I added some of what's in red, and then they added what's highlighted.
I got you. About the part about the owner agrees to pay contractor value of work, and they added that.
They did, and that's
Okay.
fair. You know,
Okay,
if
yeah,
we stop-
okay.
What I don't now have is our corresponding provision, that if they stop work, we either get the money back. If we purchase the materials, we get the materials.
Yeah,
You know,
right,
whatever it may
right.
be, we're made whole.
Right, okay, yeah, we gotta be whole on that.
Have a motion and a second, have a roll call, Mr.
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to item D, request RFP driveway and parking area paving at Fire Station number 2, and you have copies in your packet.
So this is a request to go ahead and start this process so we can calculate funding. As you noticed from the pictures that were provided, you know, the parking lot at Station 2 is in such disrepair that just putting another top coat on it is not going to suffice. And so Chief Duffy has asked that we go ahead and solicit RFP so we can get a cost on this. It's not obligating at this point, just getting the RFP, and then you can make a determination based on that.
Yeah, notice there in front of the doors where the trucks come out, it begins to pool not only, but right in front of the doors where the trucks, they park the trucks in, they come out, looks like they step right past the, Mike, it was the first, I think it was the second.
Okay.
It looks like they pull them up and then let them sit, you know, kind of. There you go, whoa, right there. See, it looks like, and it's consistent all the way across there, so it tells me they.
We just did that 20 years ago.
That's a lot, I want to back in last. That big trucks and
Yeah.
bigger trucks now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just need a motion based on Chief Duffy's recommendation RFP. Motion by Gibson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Roberts.
Second? Any other further questions?
Sure. Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
And Mayor Plummer.
Yes.
Okay. The motion passes.
Okay, moving on to item E, recommendation to promote fire department lieutenant. Aaron's not here, so.
Yep, she had childcare issues this evening, is not here, but her memo is in the packet from herself and Chief Duffy, and recommendation to promotion of lieutenant with the Paris Fire Department. So to promote firefighter, paramedic Kendall Williams, who's served in the department since August 2014.
Motion.
Motion by Galbraith, is there a second? Gibson.
Motion and a second. Any further questions? Aaron, have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith.
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Mayor Plummer.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Moving on to F, recommendation to hire full-time firefighter EMT.
The recommendation is there in your packet, and the recommendation of Ms. Morton and Chief Duffy is to hire Tony Rowland.
Motion.
Has he been with the city?
Tony has.
As a temporary or?
I think he has been
He
on.
has, I forget when he actually.
Part-time.
Yeah, he's been.
Part-time.
Where I don't remember when he holds both his EMT and CPAS certification, and it's, when he came on, but, helping from the current, he was on the part-time roster, he's moving.
Motion and second?
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second? Any more conversation? Oh, roll call, please.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to G, recommendation to hire full-time water plant operator.
Again, the motion, or the recommendation is in the packet. This is created by turnover in the department. 17 applicants, 12 were called for interviews, and Superintendent Smart and Ms. Morton conducted those. And so the position being filled is a full-time water plant operator trainee. This offer, as the others, contingent upon completing the final onboarding process and drug screen, and recommendation to hire Lucas Spear.
Motion?
Second.
Okay, have a second. Any further comments? Motion and second?
Roll call, Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving right along, number H, request RFP dump truck for wastewater department.
The Superintendent Harney's memo there is again to RFP, single axle dump truck. They have one that continues to require some maintenance and agreements and maintenance and repairs. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, that one's been in the department for 20 years.
It's been, yeah.
And
And
this,
it's budgeted.
No,
Yeah.
38 years. No.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
so,
money anyway.
RFP recommendation for the truck for the department, that is a budgeted item, but again, this is just the RFP process that he's requesting.
Motion and a second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Darren?
All right.
Roll call?
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to I, city telephone and email response policy. Commissioner Gibson.
Why did you do that one?
Because you're on there to do it.
There you go. Chief?
It's your, we
So-
have talked about it.
Yeah, we both have talked about this. Is there a policy as far as if we are sending emails, or if individuals, you know, from the city have emailed or called, is there, like, where I work, it's a 24-hour policy, and if I get a phone call or an email, it falls in my basket. I have to take care of it whether it's in my department or not. So I've had several individuals from the community reach out to me that they have sent emails or they've made phone calls and they're not getting any responses back and things like that. So I did not, and then there's certain emails that I've sent out and I've not received emails, a response back. So we did not know, being new, if there's something that you all go by, like if you get an email or a phone call, is there a time span for you to get back with that individual?
Talked to Ms. Morton, under her recollection, and nothing that's in our adopted policy, that a previous commission has adopted a policy towards
Okay.
that. No, ma'am, that there's not a policy. There is under just general job descriptions, of, the expectation of responsiveness, but there's not a set, this, to my knowledge, correct me if you would know from legal standpoint, if you've ever drafted one of those that has, a commission has adopted a set policy that says that there is a response time on that.
Well, just common courtesy would be if someone has a concern or sending an email. To me, I mean, I want to get back with people, and I think that's just common courtesy and respect. So if we do not have a policy, there's something that we can kind of set in place that takes place, or, I just think if people are having issues, like she had an issue over the weekend that had not been taken care of, and.
Well, I don't get into personnel.
No, we're not.
Yeah,
What I'm
right,
saying
yeah.
is, if we need to, even if it's us, I mean, as a commissioner, I feel like if I send an email to someone, it's common courtesy to get back with me, because I'm gonna do the same.
Right.
So that's what I'm asking. If there's not a policy, then amongst us, we need to come up with something to where we're being respectful and getting back with each other, or getting back with our citizens that are reaching out to us.
I wish Ms. Morton was here because she could address the Department of Labor concerns that she had about, setting a policy outside of normal work hours and things like that for folks. But I think, yeah.
I understand
But-
that, but it's holding people accountable also.
Right, yes, and I think
And that's
that-
what we need to do, is
Yeah.
hold people accountable.
I think that definitely, from the standpoint that if that is a person, if we know in a certain department that's not doing that, then we have the obligation to let myself know or their supervisor know that that's not, and we can address it from that standpoint and allow those folks the opportunity to coach that person up and understand from that. But I mean, that's at your discretion. If y'all want to set a policy, most certainly have that set a timeframe policy. Again, when I talked to Ms. Morton before she had to leave, that was she said she had some concerns in relationship to Department of Labor standards and things like that, and expectation that if somebody's off the clock, or if they're on vacation, or if they're,
And
that,
obviously
so.
people
We understand that.
Right, yeah, but, or if they don't work on the weekend and something comes in on the weekend, that type of.
I don't think
Right.
we would, anybody expect to be answered before.
But again, I think, we can have a conversation afterwards if there's specific instances that we need to be met.
Okay.
But again, it's your decision as a body, an elected body, that if you want to set an ordinance or a policy there, generally those are, I would say, in the employee handbook, but not in the ordinances.
Okay. And I'll get with Erin. I'll call Erin. She thinks, and then go from there. So maybe we'll put it back on the agenda for next time.
I don't think if Fayette County school system is doing that, then surely to goodness, that's not a department issue.
That was just something that she brought up to me, that there was,
Mhm.
could be some concerns on
Okay.
expectation outside of work hours, or, so,
Okay.
that didn't get into. So.
But I'll give her a call. Thank you.
Moving on to financial business, February financials, Brad?
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So starting here on page 21, we've got the cash report for the end of February. You can see that operating funds on the general fund are up to 7.2 million. Looking at last year, we're at
And Brad, is your microphone gone off?
Found out, yeah.
I'm out.
How do I find it back in? test, 1, 2, 3 test.
No, no.
Started to there.
Is that better? No.
No.
It was for a second.
It was.
Wait for a second. How's that? There you go.
Okay, so, general fund cash, we're at 7.2 million at the end of February compared to 6.3 for last year. Compared to the end of January at 6.1 million. No changes in the restricted funds, or no major changes in the restricted funds from a cash standpoint. Year to date, you can see interest, we're up to 42,000 on what we're holding compared to 51 from last year. And that's pretty much just a change in the interest rates when, about a year ago, when everything went down to 0 on the interest rates. Moving on to page 22 for the general fund. And what you'll see is I got some green highlights on here that's still kind of working on some numbers and projections through the end of the year. But moving on to page 23, as far as looking at the totals, right now we're at 5.9 million, or actually I'll say close to 6 million in revenues. Looking to potentially be at around the 8 million mark by the end of June 30. From an expense standpoint, you can see that we're at 4.7 million. And mostly on the general fund, as I always kind of say, we're on the truly on a cash basis on the general fund. So right now, our revenues are exceeding expenditures by 1.2 million. And you kind of see that from the overall increase in the cash balance as well too. So looking at our projected, right now, kind of looking at the 7.8 million in projections. That probably will change as we kind of run into the year and kind of finalize up some of the capital outlays and everything. So, but we'll still be within our budget range when we come in with the amended budget around 8 million in expenditures and everything. So, all in all, in general fund, looking very solid for the year and continue to be that way given everything that has been kind of going on. And I don't see any changes, significant changes from a downturn point affecting the general fund. So I think we should hopefully be pretty consistent moving in through the rest of the year and everything the last couple months. Next few pages, you just have the printouts from local governments that give you the department detail, list more of the budget items as well too, so you can kind of get a feel for line by line budget to actual on those. Moving down to page 41, we'll look at the utility fund cash balances. Right now, utility fund operating funds are right around 419,000. We are down from last year, which is kind of what we expected with the late utility payments. Actually, we had a chance to increase operating funds by about 100,000 from the end of January as well too. I think we've transferred some of that down into our construction fund here in the month of March, so we'll see that reflected in next month's financials and everything. The overall restricted funds did decrease just a little bit. I think from the construction we may use just a little to help out with payroll and stuff like that, but that's where we'll get that replenished here in the month of March. So all in all, staying very consistent with the utility fund cash balances, which is what we were hoping for kind of 9 or 10 months ago when a lot of this kind of started hitting with the short payments and everything. So year to date on the interest income, right around 9,000 compared to 16,000 for last year, and that's really more of a reflection of the overall cash balances. Moving on to page 42 for the summary of revenues and expenditures, and this is more on an accrual basis than overall cash basis like we see on the general fund. Right now we're about 6.7 million in revenues, projecting those out through the end of the year kind of on a formula basis. We're looking at about 10 million in revenue compared to the 9.9 that we had originally estimated, so about 100,000 potentially extra in revenue. And You know, we're also kind of starting to collect the late fees and penalties. We really didn't have a big budget on that line item, I don't think so. But that will be one thing that will kind of help us out, heading into the end of the year from a revenue standpoint as well, too. Looking at the expenses right now, 6.3 million in expenditures on the utility fund side. Projecting out, even with our capital outlays at this point in time, to probably be right around our 9.9 million in expenditures that we originally budgeted. Potential, hopefully have a positive revenue over budget by about 100,000 when all is said and done towards the end of June. Obviously, that's going to change as we just get more experience for the year and kind of look at those formulas. And then starting on the next couple pages, all the way down to page 64, you've got the detail for revenues and expenditures on the utility fund side as well, too. So that is the financial report for the month of February.
Anybody got any questions? I'll need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve financials is presented.
Second.
Motion and a second, roll call.
Commissioner Roberts? Commissioner Galbraith?
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
Mayor Plummer?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Utility outstanding receivables, Brad.
Sure, and I actually handed out a new report, updated it this morning, so to one extent I wanted to do that to get us a little bit more consistent with the February 22nd numbers as well too. So we will see as of close of business yesterday, kind of just go down halfway down the page, our total outstanding receivables were 246,000, and you can kind of see how that's broken out from the 30, 60, 90-day number. If we go back a month ago, we were right around 340,000 outstanding receivables. So month over month, trailing 30 days there, you can see a really good collection coming in and really working on lowering the overall, not only the overall balance, but also the past due balance as well too. So if we move back up to the top of the page, you can see as far as past dues, 34 commercial accounts compared to about 68 for the same time last year, 488 residentials compared to 615 from the same time in February. So you kind of got the allocation there. Have my numbers written down on a different sheet that I'm looking at, but I think it was pretty much about a 29% reduction, Stan, what you kind of looked at?
Yeah, but what I had done is
Yeah.
I had broken it down 30, 60, 60 to 90, and 90 plus, and I had done each category versus, cumulative and things like that. But yes, that would probably be about right, because personally, I never get concerned about the current call, because I know that's a timing, particularly on the, let's say with our commercial customers and things like that. So I don't get too concerned about that. But I had looked at 30 to 60, and from last month, from February the 28th to this, it was down. 30 to 60 was down 60%. 60 to 90 was down 77%, and 90 plus days were down 51%.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Well, and you can also kind of see too in the balance breakdown as well too. During this month, I mean, we're, from that 1,000 to 5,000 range, we're at 20 customers compared to 34 last year, and then even just dropping down to the next category, we're at 60 customers in residential and 88 compared to last month. So some things we kind of talked about, weather, timing, and all that, kind of getting back into the normal at this point in time. But really, even at this point in time last year on a typical year, this outstanding balance is more closer to about $100,000 or less. So still, good numbers, but when we go back in historical, still kind of high from what we're used to.
Okay, anybody got any questions?
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Huge improvement over the last 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4
Yeah.
months. I mean, we've done a lot of progress.
Item C, approval of payment of invoices.
Okay, starting on page 63, you'll have the general fund claims listing. That will carry over to page, sorry, 66. Contacts are starting to go out. 67 carries over to 67 as well. We'll need approval on the general fund for $252,971.92. And then utility fund, you'll see is on page 68 and 69. We'll need approval for $180,123.40.
Any questions? Need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second. Aaron, have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Plummer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, D, outstanding accounts payable.
Yeah, no action on this, and just kind of an information point for you. And our accounts payable clerk was out a good portion of last week, so that's why the general fund listing is really light. I should have printed out a new one this morning for you guys to hand out and stuff like that. So just as of Friday when we printed this out, it was about 100 in outstanding invoices. Utility fund was a little bit more up to date. As you'll see on page 73, we've got a total outstanding invoice of around $70,604.49.
Thanks, Brad.
On the reports. Andy, you have anything?
No, I had a note here on the utility relief fund from Kentucky Housing, and we've already talked about that, so.
Mr. Roberts?
I do not.
Oh, you don't have it, okay. Ron, you got anything about
I
here?
do not.
No, I was waiting for you.
I would just like to bring up real quick, if somebody, Darren or Mike, tell us just a little bit about the Main Street project, because there was a lot of griping going on, or complaints, whatever, so if you could just sort of highlight, tell us what's happening, I guess.
Well, they have started the work back. The State Transportation Cabinet, as everyone is well aware, the Main and High Street project is a $8+ million investment by the state, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, into the Paris community to redo those roadways. The original target date had been for the whole thing to be completed was this year. That has since with COVID has since been pushed back. We'll get an update at our April the 9th project meeting on their new timeline, but the last one that we had been told was they were looking at the Main Street portion to be done in this calendar year and the High Street portion to be done. Mike, did you have any?
Thank you.
I would have to say that, when talking to Betty Ann today, she actually had a citizen reach out to her and say, why doesn't the city maybe put a banner up and say, pardon our dust? You know, shops still open this way, you know, that kind of thing. We could just help people that are from out of town understand that, okay, you know, and even, I think they went further as to say, you know, you can go this direction if you'd like to bypass the mess, but our shops are still open, you know, something on that line, which would be nice, you know.
We could definitely look at it. We might be able to use our message board or something like that. I don't know that a banner out by the high school on the bypass, you know, if there's a location for something like that, but look to see if those message boards or something may be able to be used.
We did get those, the April 9th meeting, put something out on the city Facebook site page, what's going on. Because I think people, you know, the more transparency, I know I have, you know, said to people, oh, this is a Columbia Gas project, it's really not the city. And they're like, oh, well, I didn't know that. So sometimes when you tell people, you know, publicly, then they kind of understand and get it a little bit more.
Yep, and we And we can also look again, we've, about once, every 6 months, or when this started, we did have the transportation cabinet. And I do know that they've been working with, since it is a transportation cabinet project, with those owners, business owners, and I forget the lady's name that they've got, Mike, do you remember? She was working with them and.
Public information
Mission
officer.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, we can look to see how we can complement their, additionally continue. I know that the paper's been real good, numerous articles on it, for us, throughout this, and we can continue.
I just ask the citizens of Paris just to show a little patience. Things are gonna get better. Be well worth it. A lot of things are happening, but, and I know it's an inconvenience, but just be patient for us. Darren, do you have anything else? Well, I need a motion to adjourn. Have a second. Got a motion?
Motion.
A motion? Motion second. Darren, roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
Adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.